Hey viewers, my name's Kara. I'm your host for Tuesdays here on the Pagan Perspective, or Wednesdays, depending on the time zone that you live in, because I post my videos pretty late in the day on Tuesdays in my time zone. This week we are talking about pagan weddings. Thank you so much to Jenny for sending in this week's topic. Jenny writes, I'm getting married this year, smiley face. We will be having a pagan handfasting of our own design, but what are the wedding/marriage traditions from each of your perspectives? Did you have a pagan wedding? If you haven't, would you want one? Would you want to incorporate aspects of paganism into a different style of wedding? All the wedding thoughts, smiley face. So, firstly, congratulations, I can't even speak, Jenny. Jenny's been one of our loyal viewers for a very long time, one of my viewers for a very long time, so I do get a chance to talk to Jenny quite a bit. Congratulations, Jenny, to you and your partner. It's really exciting, and I was looking back briefly through our blog, which has our past collab topics on it, because I know we've talked about weddings and handfastings in the past, I think actually multiple times, but I just sort of picked a random year to go back to on the blog, and sure enough, it happened to be the correct year where we have at least spoken about weddings once before. So that was in actually July as well. It is wedding season, sort of. In summertime in the Northern Hemisphere tends to be like wedding season. But it was in July of 2013 that we talked about weddings. That might not have been the last time that we talked about weddings and handfastings. We might have talked about them again since then, but that is at least one other time in the Pagan Perspective history that you can go to and find more videos where we were talking about weddings. I didn't rewatch my video from that year, but the title of my video from that week was Writing Weddings. And so my guess is that I talked about how I have gotten to participate in a few different pagan wedding ceremonies because my mother actually got ordained online as a ULC, Universal Life Church minister, so that she could perform legal wedding ceremonies for our friends, some of whom were pagan. And so therefore, some of the time, the weddings that she officiated and that I got to attend, sometimes they were pagan weddings. So the title that I gave it, Writing Weddings, I probably talked about how I had gotten to participate in creating a pagan wedding ceremony for my friends. One of my high school best friends later went on to get married and had always, from the time we were in high school, considered himself to be a pagan. And then the woman that he actually got engaged to and married also considered themselves a pagan, although very different types at the time. And so over the years, their paths went a certain way, different to where mine has gone. But at the time, it was a little more kind of just like, when we say generic pagan, what we really mean, a lot of it is actually Wiccan influenced, if not Wiccan based, because a lot of the resources that were out there for people actually originated from Wiccan traditions, and not a lot of people realize that because we can't always trace the stuff that's kind of out there as generic information exactly that well, But so it was a little more like what we would call generic pagan. But my mom had, this binder of different prayers and blessings and different ways that she would adapt a traditional wedding ceremony for people. And so there were certain things that we like to do, such as, a lot of people, not just pagans, but a lot of people doing sort of different things with their wedding ceremonies. They like to do the lighting of candles, where each person who is getting married has their own candle and they light it from whatever. And then there is a separate larger candle, usually larger, more decorative candle, that represents the partnership that is going to be celebrated and made legal, made legally official in that wedding ceremony. And So the people who are getting married take their candles that are individually lit, and together they use their separate flames to light the flame of the larger candle. That's beautiful symbolism. Some people also like to do that with sand, like different colored sand, where they sort of work together to create a beautiful sand art piece. If you've ever seen those, where there's like different colors of sand in a bottle, and you can sort of poke it with a stick to make the sand go in waves and different patterns on the side. You know, it's a craft that people do with kids all the time, but I've also seen people incorporate it into a wedding ceremony, and it's really beautiful because then they have this fun sort of piece of art that symbolizes their union as well, and then you get to keep that. And so it would be, you know, they take turns pouring different colors of sand into this bottle, or sometimes they have their parents join in, or their best friend, you know, if they have something like a maid of honor, best man, things like that, maybe each person in the wedding party gets to pour a layer of the sand, you know, whatever. It's very personal, whatever people want to do. But so I've seen things like that being done. I think my friends, when they got married, I don't know if they did a hand fasting. I wasn't actually able to be present at their wedding. But, you know, so my mom had all these other ideas for things, but something that was missing, my mom did not have a pagan ring blessing. The only ring blessings that she had were from the Christian tradition. So I actually wrote a ring blessing for my friend's wedding that I wasn't able to be at. But I have it somewhere in my books. I have it written down, but I do remember that it had to do with the symbolism of the ring, the symbolism of the circle, the magic circle, and how it is the great equalizer. There are no weak points around a circle. Everyone is equal within the circle. You know, the reason that traditions which use a magic circle for a ritual in the first place, not all pagans do this, but the reason that traditions that do use a magic circle are a lot of those things. The symbolism of why it is a round circle, or really it's a sphere. But, you know, why that rather than a triangle? Why not a square? Why not a rectangle, right? So I drew on that sort of symbolism to write a short ring blessing that my mom could then use. And there was another pagan wedding that I got to actually attend. I wasn't part of it, like I wasn't participating in it as part of the wedding party, but I got to attend and witness it, which took place in a local cemetery on Halloween. And it was awesome because, like, I love cemeteries. I always have. Always loved Halloween as well, of course. But it's also one of my favorite old local cemeteries. And the story behind it was that this couple who was getting married, they lived in the area as kids. They met when they were very young. They've always been friends, right? And when they were very young, they used to play in the woods around this cemetery. And, well, it's actually a graveyard, which the distinction that is made there that I learned from the cemetery sextons from that cemetery is that they consider it a graveyard because it is they are no longer actively burying people there. It's like closed, right? No one else will ever be buried there. So that's the distinction that they made. But the cemetery sextons were there because it was a historic event. It was the first wedding that had ever taken place in that particular cemetery. But, oh yeah, so the couple had played there together as kids. It was just like this place in the woods near where they lived. And so they decided to get married there, and it was really cool. And yeah, so that's another one that I got to attend. I am not married. I've never been married. If I do get married, or when, I have always planned to have a pagan ceremony of some kind, right? And I know that a lot of that depends on personal creation at this point too. I've always intended to have a hand fasting. And I also am a fan of hand fastings that are not just legally binding marriage ceremonies too. I am a fan of hand fastings that are just a spiritual acknowledgement of commitment that can be personal, that can be witnessed by family and friends if you want them to be, but that, you know, so I think a hand fasting doesn't have to just be the equivalent of the legal marriage ceremony as we have it here in the United States. And, you know, elsewhere around the world, I don't know what the laws around weddings and things like that entail. But that was always kind of the idea of it, right? Is that the hand fasting was a spiritual commitment. It was a commitment that you made in front of family, friends, in front of your community. And that made it sort of legally binding because everyone knew that you had made this commitment. And a lot of the time it was for a year and a day, and you could choose to make it for a year and a day, or you could choose to just say right then and there, this is forever. This is until we die. This is through all of our lifetimes that our souls will reincarnate through into the future, you know, whatever. But I kind of like the idea of having it be every year, not because then it's like, oh, after this year we can break up and go our separate ways, but that you could do that if that is how your relationship ended up. But also I think that even if you are planning to be together forever, it's nice to revisit that every year and to remember and acknowledge the choice that was made. Because I feel like that's something that, you know, my current partner and I talk about a lot. That, I mean, it's not something that we literally discuss every single day, but we talk about the fact that every day that we are together is a continual choice to be together and to remain together. And so I like the idea of the hand fasting that is sort of an annual ceremony acknowledging a choice that you make every day. And so I really like that. So I've always planned on incorporating a hand fasting in that way, whether I do it as a spiritual commitment, a non-legal one to start out with, or if I eventually do get legally married, I would still incorporate a hand fasting into that for sure. And then, you know, everything else, I don't know, I would want to dance. I do like to dance. I would want to dance. I would want people drumming. I would want a drum circle. I would want a bonfire. I would want, you know, just like all the things that I like and that I love and that my partner and I like and love. Music, dancing, food, friends. And we don't have a lot of friends either, so that's another thing that I've always thought when I do think about weddings, because I feel like that's a thing that society expects females to think about a lot. So whenever I have, it's always been like, who would I even ask to be in my wedding party? You know, like who would come to my wedding? Like, even I have only ever been invited to like a couple weddings. All the people that I know, all the friends that I've had throughout the years who have gotten married, most of them have never invited me to their wedding, you know? Meanwhile, like my current partner, sorry, I have like fur or hair fuzz or something. Oh hi, there's a blue jay balancing on the power line outside my window. I love the blue jays. I have to stop and say hi to them. Anyway, my current partner has been in like a ton of wedding parties. Like they are the person that every friend they've ever had throughout life, even if they don't talk a lot anymore, always reaches out to them to invite them not just to attend their wedding, but they want them to be in the wedding party. And I'm just like, that's amazing. Like that's so not my experience with like friendships. And I just think it's so special. So I've gotten to attend a couple of my partner's friends' weddings and meet them and, you know, see what they've done. Outdoor ceremonies where people's dogs are involved as part of the party, you know, like, yeah, I just like it. You know, it's fun. They're fun. It's a great celebration. And so, yeah, I've always just had sort of thoughts about, like, what I would want to include, but also worries about, like, who would I even invite? Like, who would I ask to be there? So I don't know. I might do something where it's like, I'm going to make sure my mom and my brother are there and, you know, that's it, you know? So, like, I don't have any plans for, like, this huge big thing, but outdoors would be great. I want a fire. I want music. I want dancing. I want it to be a ritual. I want anyone who does attend to know that in advance. And by showing up, they agree to be okay with that. You know, like, I'm not going to make everyone participate directly. Like, you don't all have to invoke an element or an ancestor or whatever. Like, not everybody has to take an active role in said ritual, but you have to be okay with the fact that you are attending a pagan ritual as a wedding ceremony. Like, that's going to be made very clear. And I know that in doing that as well, it means that certain people in my life, like who are connected to me genetically, might not want to attend, but frankly, that's okay, because I'm not the kind of person who's going to make our lives more difficult or drama-filled, full of drama, by feeling obligated to invite certain people to something if they haven't actually been supportive. So that's not a thing that really bothers me, because I'm just like, basically no one's gonna be there if I ever do get married legally. I'll make sure my mom and my brother are there. Obviously my grandma now is not gonna be there because she has passed on. She'll be there in spirit, absolutely. Oh yeah, she's getting invited for sure. Ancestors and descendants very much welcome. Those who come in love and support the relationship and the love that is being celebrated. But yeah, so I know whenever we have talked about weddings in the past, people have talked about like how to deal with family who's not pagan, how to incorporate pagan things into a Christian traditional ceremony in sneaky ways so that people can't detect that it's actually pagan. And I mean, I've shared a couple of those ideas, like the candle thing and the sand art. You know, there are some pretty cool, like, sort of non-traditional things that people like to do that I don't think Christian ceremony or relatives would be too, like, beat up about. But I've never been the right person to ask about that type of thing, because I believe that you shouldn't have to hide and you shouldn't have to compromise. Especially, like, a lot of people have to hide who they are every single day, right? Every day. Whether it's from your friends and family, whether it's from your partner. Some people are already married by the time they start learning new things about themselves that are new identities and things that they're not even sure what their partner is going to think about them. Whether it's from coworkers or just, you know, people out and about in your neighborhood, you know, whatever. People have to hide who they are every single freaking day. And a lot of people, this is debatable, but a lot of people tend to talk about, like, your wedding when you get married as being one of the most important and significant days in your life. And I just feel like if it is that to you, then that is one time that you should not have to compromise and you shouldn't have to hide who you are. And so I want to acknowledge that not everybody is in the position that I am in with that. Not everybody feels able to draw that line in the colorful sand art and say this is a pagan wedding ceremony, and if you're not down with that, you don't have to attend. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody also has the luxury of, for example, having a mother who is okay with me being a witch, so I know that she'll always show up. She'd probably even want to officiate the wedding, but I'm probably not going to have her do that and be like, no, you're going to be here as my mother. Someone else is going to officiate, right? Just like my friend. I have a friend who is a professional photographer, but they are not going to photograph my wedding. They are going to be there as a friend. If I have friends at my wedding, you know, they're going to be there as a guest, not as their job, right? Not everyone has family who will be accepting and show up no matter what. I know that. And not everybody has the luxury of being able to say, well, I already kind of don't have a close connection with my family, so it doesn't matter if I invite them or not. I'm not expecting them to show up, kind of thing. Other people are very much invested in their entire extended family, even if that means having to hide things from them. And so I want to acknowledge that I know that there are people in that situation, but I also have to be honest and say I'm not the person to ask about how to sneakily or secretly put things together. I mean, really, like, if it really came down to it and I had a friend who was like, I cannot tell my family that I'm pagan, I have to get married in this Christian church, whatever, but I still want to put a few things in there that are pagan, I'd come up with some ideas. You know, I might share that ring blessing that I wrote that was really just talking about the symbolism of the circle, and maybe I would take out any of the references that directly said pagan or witch in it, right? Like, maybe we wouldn't talk about magic, but some of those ideas, just the ideas of the deeper symbolism that exists, that have always existed, that have been part of humanity for longer than Christianity has, you know, whatever, like, we'd come up with something. But overall, I really think that if it's that important of a day, it is my wish and my hope for everyone that no one would ever have to hide who they are on that day, and in that moment where you're celebrating your love with someone else who I hope knows who you are as well and shares some of that with you, or at least loves you for it. Yeah, you're never gonna hear me encourage someone to not be true to themselves in that way. But I know it's hard. Because life's different for everybody. Family relationships are different for everybody. Romantic relationships are different for everybody. So, you know, society's weird. A lot of shit is fucked up. And I can't, yeah, you know? So, acknowledgement to all of that. Those are my thoughts about pagan weddings in general. I talked about this again, probably at least in 2013 on this channel. But yeah, my thoughts about that really still haven't changed. I've always wanted an outdoor wedding, assuming that I would ever get married. You know, whatever, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, but yeah, you know, from the time you're a little kid, especially when you are a female child, people kind of expect you to have this full, like, dream wedding binder or something, which I don't have, but I have always wanted it to be outdoors. So it got way too hot on my porch again, and my phone stopped recording. So, but that's fine. I was rambling for a bit too long anyway. So I was just saying that I always knew if I were to ever have a wedding, that I wanted it to be outdoors. I've always loved nature, even before I knew that I was pagan, even before I knew that that was a word or, you know, something that you could be, right? So I do still hold some of those same ideas that I've had forever, but it's not something that I've ever, like, planned out or anything that I'm really, like, super concerned about. And yeah, it's like the older I get, the more I'm like, it's not gonna be like that. It's not gonna be big. It's not gonna be this huge, like, whatever. But it is gonna be mine, and it is absolutely a privilege to be able to say that. To know that, you know, that my mom will show up and do whatever we're gonna do. And I'm not really worried about anyone else. I don't feel obligated to have to do certain things for any other people. And I know that that's not the case for everyone out there. So, yeah. I can never tell you what to do or what's best for you. That is my personal perspective. So thank you very much for watching and or listening. Thank you, Jenny, for this week's topic. Thank you all for sending in topics and for your patience as we get through topics that, 2019, we were completely full for topics. So we are just now in 2020 starting to get through some of the ones that were suggested earlier. Some of the questions that you all ask, by the way, are also, like, really difficult and really intense, and they are still on the list. We are discussing them and trying to figure out what the best way would be to address them some of the time. Sometimes you have really awesome questions that we can't all give a personal perspective on, and it doesn't always feel like it would be best served by us, like, Googling it and reading the Wikipedia page and just telling you, like, well, this is what I read about it, because we really do, like, that's cool. Like, we definitely like learning new things about things, but it definitely serves the topic better when we can speak, when any of us can speak from personal experience about something. That's what really gives it the perspective, you know? Any of us can Google something, and I feel like when you ask us for our opinions about things, you don't necessarily want just a Googled answer, because if that's what you wanted, you would Google it and read the Wikipedia article yourself, right? You want personal perspectives and responses. And so that's what we've done in the past, is, like, if we read about something and then we give our personal reaction to it, we can do that. but that's not quite the same as having a personal perspective based on a personal experience with the thing. So I do just want to mention that there are a lot of topics that have been on the list for quite a little while now. They've been asked like within the past 2 years that I know we haven't covered. And we might just end up having to do what we've done before, where we have like 8 or 10 topics and, you know, we pick a month to do them and let each host pick whatever 2 or 3 out of that longer list they feel capable of addressing. And that way, maybe some of them don't get addressed, but it's not because it never came up in our rotation. So that way, if it doesn't get addressed, it's because none of us felt like we could adequately speak to it, you know? There are also a lot of questions that people have asked us over the past 2 years that are political topics. We will definitely be bringing those back around here. And yeah, thank you all for all of your great questions over the years and your patience as we get to them again. Thank you to everyone on the team, past, present, and future, for being part of this team and hanging in there with us as we evolve and learn and grow as well. And yeah, thank you all so much, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening. I will see you next week. Until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye.